Welcome back to Shadow Dragon. We've got a lot of items to use after stocking up last chapter. A strength boost for Marth, Astram, and George, a speed boost for Maria, Minerva, and Tiki, and 2 shots of magic for Maria and 1 for Lind to even them out in terms of magical power. And finally, Est gets her promotion. This map is dominated by the huge fortress in the center, with impassable walls that even flyers can't cross. You have to go around the left or the right side. The fortress starts out full of all sorts of flyers and cavalry with really nasty weapons, and most of them will start chasing you down. And of course the obligatory 2 fortify clerics that will heal all the enemies at the end of their turn. The right-hand path to the castle leads past the village where you need to trade in the 2 orbs, and a thief will be going after it to force you to hurry. The biggest threat on this map is the sheer amount of ground that all the enemy units can cover, but our team has plenty of mobile flyers and cavalry as well. You also need to pay really close attention to weapons. Whether the enemy is wielding a silver weapon, a rider's bane, a javelin, a bow, or something else entirely could mean the difference between your units being able to take multiple hits, or being killed after just a couple. When I started, I figured the best thing to do would be to push up as much as possible up the right side until I couldn't anymore, but I quickly found myself in a situation where the enemies were spaced out in such a way that I couldn't send anyone into the fight without exposing them to way too much retaliation. Even my tankiest units can't take that many silver lance hits, and the enemies with javelins, while weaker, all represented potential threats that could chip away at anyone I tried to set up as a wall. The horsemen with bows were too much of a threat to my flyers, the enemies with rider's banes and killer weapons were too much of a threat to my horsemen, and after a lot of deliberation, I decided that my best bet would be to pull back and draw the enemy in for a big attack on the next turn instead. I was worried about the thief reaching the village, but I purposely brought both Maria and Boa with warp staves, so if worst came to worst, I could always send someone to block off the village gates. Sita's luck is so high that even enemies with killer weapons have a 0% crit chance against her. This skirmish here is a perfect example of why you should prioritize moving the units in the back of your army first, especially when you need every hand on deck for a combat-heavy player phase. These low movement units in the back can only reach the very closest enemies, so if I used my flyers and paladins to attack those front enemies, nobody would be able to move far enough to kill the furthest targets. By getting rid of the first wave of enemies with my foot soldiers, I also get rid of obstacles for the flyers and paladins, meaning they can travel even farther since they don't have to use movement points to go around enemies blocking the way. Once you push your way through that first wave of enemies, this map doesn't have much bite left to it. Move your army to the entrance of the fortress to start baiting out the few enemies left inside, get rid of the thief to ensure the village's safety, and put both the light sphere and the star sphere into Mart's inventory before he visits it. If you visit the village without both spheres, Gotoh will roast you, but the village gates won't close, so you can visit it again when Marth has both the spheres. If you fail to get the Starlight Tome before clearing this chapter, you'll miss out on the opportunity to kill a major villain later, and you might not be able to get Marth's ultimate sword at all, so make sure you don't miss it. I know it's hard to give up the Star Sphere, but it's for the good of the universe, and for the good of canon. Michaelis has a bunch of potential conversations with the people who fight him, but only one will trigger on a given playthrough of the chapter depending on the first character that enters combat with him. For this playthrough I had him fight Marth first, so I got his unique conversation with Marth, but I'll show the rest of them at the end of the video. Reinforcements start appearing from the forts every turn from turns 8 to 14, starting with 1 Paladin and 1 Draco Knight each turn, and then on turn 11 there are 3 Draco Knights, a Bishop, a Horseman, and a Paladin per turn until turn 14. All reinforcements stop when Michaelis dies. Michaelis drops Iot's shield. When held by a flying unit, it negates their vulnerability to arrows, which is super useful. I'm taking this opportunity to stock up on lances since we've got a lot of characters that use them. The other shop sells bows and ballistae in case you're getting a lot of use out of Beck and Jake, I guess. And then there are the same old tomes and staves. Time to seize. We're cutting down major antagonists left and right and rapidly approaching the end of our story. Join me next time when we go for round 2 against the invincible sorcerer Garnef. See you then.